Okay, hi everybody. I am going to give you a close-up of my hand, so hopefully you'll be able to see this beginning cylinder throwing demonstration. So as you saw in the photograph, you want to start with half dozen balls or so. That way none of them are too precious, and keep them kind of wrapped up in your plastic bag. And we'll just begin with one. So you're going to need probably a bat to work on a wheel. So most of the wheels are going to have these pins here, and these hold these little trays that we call bats on the wheel, and they have different hole patterns. So these have kind of a braille system on the side of little dots, and what we want to do is we want the one with 3 dots, and then this here is spaced to fit over the bat pin. So I line my fingers up on the little dots, and I try to gently get it to stick in the hole, and it can take a few minutes. It's a little bit tricky. If you're having trouble in the studio when you're doing this, I'll try to help you. So they kind of fit down on there, and then it really is stuck. You can't slide it off, so just double check it. You don't want it to fly off while you're trying to throw. So you're going to want, let me show you the tools you're going to need. You're definitely going to need a sponge here, and then you're going to want maybe a rib, possibly. You definitely need your needle tool to be able to, your wire tool to be able to cut the pot off the wheel when you're finished. Your needle tool is helpful if you have a rim that's very jagged and you need to cut it off. And then you're also probably going to use your wooden knife tool. These come in lots of shapes, and any one will do, honestly. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your hands are dry and that your wheel head, we call this a wheel head, is dry. So I want you all to start with several balls of clay that are between maybe 3/4 and 1 pound. We have a scale that's on top of the plaster table that I showed you in the photograph. So take some time to measure that out and really wedge your clay. So it's very important when you're throwing to have your clay particles be nicely prepared. You want those clay particles to be aligned in a spiral pattern, and the wedging will lend itself to that. So you start with as round a piece as you can, and you really kind of tap it on there without flattening it. You really want it to be round. Now, these orange wheels are Pacifica brand wheels, and they go both for right and left-handed folks. So if you're right-handed, you want your wheel to spin, counterclockwise, and if you're left-handed, you want the wheel to spin clockwise. So the switch to turn it on, let me see if I can set that up, is over here on the side, down here, and let's check that out. Okay, so it's on now, and it is spinning counterclockwise, and I am right-handed, so that works for me. Okay, so I'm gonna wet my hands and wet the clay, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm really gonna push straight down on the wheel head and make sure that the clay is stuck. So I'm kind of cupping my hands like this over the clay, and I try to really, I rest my elbows on my legs if I can, or on the edge of the splash pin, and I really try to bring my hands on slowly and then gently take them off. So you bring them on the clay slowly and then push, and then gently stop pushing and let go. So it looks pretty centered, but what I want to really do is comb the clay up and down. I'm going to push with the base of my hand and catch with my opposite hand like this, and gently squeeze it up. You need to have enough lubrication so that you're not having a lot of friction here and causing the clay to fall off. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to gently begin to apply pressure, and then I'm going to drop my wrist down and gently release. Okay, so usually I ask people to try to do that maybe 3 times. All right, if I let go too quickly, it throws it off center. So try not to be nervous. Breathe, gently come onto the clay, squeeze a little harder, and then gently release and breathe, okay? It just takes a little while to get the hang of it. Honestly, it took me about 2 months to feel pretty comfortable centering, so don't worry if you don't get it right away. All right, so now that the clay is fairly centered, I'm ready to put a hole in it. The next step is to plunge and then open to decide how wide that clay is going to be, how wide the base of the piece is going to be. And I am going to make sure I have plenty of lubrication. I want the inside of my pot to look like this. I want it to be a right angle, so I'm going to plunge straight down and then pinch my thumbs over to my hands, but keep my hands straight, and then try to lift the clay up a little bit. So I'm trying to get the cylinder as tall as possible and with the walls to be even so that I can then go ahead and shape the clay. So here I am. I want to support myself on the wheel splash pan or on my legs. Sometimes I lift my leg up on the side. I don't know if you can really see it in this video, with a brick. So I will set them up so that they have bricks next to them and you can lift your legs up. Okay, so I didn't go all the way. I want to leave probably about a ½ an inch or so for this. Usually for a cup form, you don't want to have a really tall foot because it just adds a lot of weight. But you want to have enough of a foot that you can trim. And so ½ an inch is going to give us plenty. Now I'm kind of squeezing out to the side. And I'm going to push in. So I really work here at 3 o'clock because the wheel is spinning the clay beneath my fingers. I don't need to move them all around. I keep them steady at 3 o'clock. I'm pushing the clay back in here, just kind of compressing the base. That can help with cracking that sometimes happens on the bottom. And I'm looking for this kind of right angle here. All right, so I've got nice straight sides. And now I'm going to use my thumbs here on the inside and my outside hands. And I'm going to try to keep this width, but I'm going to see if I can push the clay up a little bit, just with a little motion like this. Sometimes these bats are a little bit wobbly, like this one's a little wobbly. All right, so it's fairly even. It's a little bit thicker at the bottom. And then I'm going to switch the camera so you can see how I move my right hand to make a pull to make that clay taller. So I really was careful not to let the lip get too thick here or to get any place on the sides here to get too thin so that it would be too much weight on that thin spot and it would twist around. I really was looking for it to be kind of even or sort of tapered toward the top. But be careful not to let the lip get too thin. Sometimes you need to kind of compress it. I sort of gently push it together and compress it. I still want it to feel kind of inviting like a lip because you're thinking about putting your mouth on this. So you always want it to be kind of soft and inviting. All right, so I'm going to take a pause here and switch camera angles.